Hello and welcome to the Week 2 Fantasy Masterminds podcast. I'm Jason.
I'm Alan.
And this week we're going to recap some of the things that happened in Week 1. We're going to tell you about a unique thing that we do on our website, FFDraftStats.com. And we're going to look ahead to a bunch of matchups that we like here in Week 2. So how's it going, Alan?
Not bad. Enjoyed Week 1. Did you enjoy it, Jason?
Yeah, I was kind of stuck doing a prior commitment, but I did get to see some of the highlights and get to watch some of the games the last couple of days. So, the usual.
Yeah.
A lot of things you don't expect to happen, and then you're surprised by some things too. So.
Yeah. Yeah, well, Marcus Mariota had a huge game, but he is $7,400 this week in FanDuel, and at that price, he's just not worth it. He had some passes that weren't quite there. He didn't throw the ball a whole lot. They got ahead early, and so we didn't see a whole lot of volume for him to show those errors come out. But
yeah, I mean, I guess the one good thing about him is he did have 25% of his passes go for touchdowns, so that number will come down a lot this year. But
yeah,
that was still pretty impressive.
That's one that's pretty much guaranteed to go down. Tell you what's impressive is that Buffalo-Indianapolis game, Jason. Those cornerbacks were targeted 25 times for Buffalo. Their left, their right, and their nickel corner. They only allowed 11 catches against Andrew Luck. That's impressive.
Yeah, no, they took the Colts straight out to the woodshed in Week 1, and, Rex Ryan was looking to make a big exclamation point to start his tenure there, and he definitely did it. The question is, will it continue this week? What do you think?
Rex Ryan's found some success against New England in the past. I would be impressed with Tom Brady if he came out and had an above-average week. Everyone thinks he's going to have a massive week coming off of last week, but that defense in Pittsburgh is not what they have in Buffalo. This game's also in Buffalo, and that place is going to be going crazy.
Yeah, I see a lot of run heavy this week, especially from the Buffalo side of the ball, trying to control the clock. And I can't imagine Gronk going off for 3 touchdowns again.
No, I don't see it happening with the safeties they have there. It's just not 3. He might get 1. I wouldn't expect him to go anywhere near what he did last week. I don't expect him to be top 3 this week in tight ends.
All right, so let's pick it up and head on into Week 2. Now, before we break down the game that we think has the most national interest, why don't we go ahead and explain the unique way that we do break down games? Alan, you want to tell everyone about that?
Well, every play gets watched 4 times from 2 different angles, and it gets logged. We're the only ones that track how many times the cornerback was targeted, how many times they let the ball be caught. And what this does is it allows mismatches to show up. And these algorithms show how much a player is being used inside the offensive system and how likely they are to go off based on defenses they're playing and stuff like that.
All right, so let's head on into the matchup that I think has the most national interest, which is Dallas and Philadelphia. Dallas coming off that total brain fart by the Giants there at the end, and then Tony Romo, of course, doing what he does in the fourth quarter of regular season games. What's your big standout thing this week for that game?
Well, Dez Bryant's not going to play in this game. He's not going to play for the next several games for Dallas. Terrence Williams going to be his replacement. Dez Bryant didn't play in the preseason. It was all Terrence Williams, so the chemistry's there with Tony Romo. Right now he's $6,300 in FanDuel. He's an absolute must-own. He only needs to get 12.6 points to pay for himself. Should be an easy thing with him. Expect 12 targets out of Terrence Williams.
Yeah, and he's going against Byron Maxwell, who last week was targeted 10 times and allowed 8 receptions, so that matchup's not looking super great for them.
No, he got chewed up by Julio Jones the entire game. Julio Jones had some hamstring tightness and didn't play the entire second half, or it would have been even worse. As far as the offensive lines, they're both pretty good. Dallas didn't have a single quarterback hit allowed. Philadelphia had a couple, but overall pretty good offensive lines. I wouldn't expect a whole lot of defense to show up in this game.
Yeah, now the Philadelphia running backs, we've talked before about how Chip Kelly basically swaps you in, swaps you out. You're just a number. Well, how do you look at their breakdown this week?
Well, DeMarco Murray's coming back. There's going to be the revenge factor there. You could probably expect him to get into the end zone at least once. He's probably not worth it with his price tag, Darren Sproles is the next most fantasy relevant player. He's okay if it's a full point per reception. I wouldn't really play him outside of that. Ryan Matthews, he's only worth it if you're in a very deep league.
All right, so let's talk about that big AFC East matchup up there in Buffalo. LaShawn McCoy, you're pretty high on him this week. Why is that?
LaShawn McCoy should be set to find the end zone in this game and have a huge game. If you look at what D'Angelo Williams did to New England's defense last week, it was pretty impressive, and then you consider they lost Marquise Pouncey. Almost every single position is better on the offensive line in Buffalo, and it's in Buffalo. Another little note here. Buffalo did not throw a pass in the red zone last week. 100% of the snaps they ran in the red zone and goal line, they ran the ball. So I would expect LaShawn McCoy to have a massive, massive game.
And staying with running backs in the AFC East, Lamar Miller's someone we're pretty high on this week. He's playing the Jacksonville defense. He's Miami's 3-down back. Where do you see him going this week?
I don't see him being owned very much. He's definitely someone you can play that would be easy to pay for himself. He's getting used more than anyone else in that system, and they're probably going to look to run the ball a little bit more this week as they did last week in Washington.
And then going to give some love to the quarterbacks here. Drew Brees. It's the 10th anniversary of the Katrina homecoming. They're playing the woeful, or seemingly woeful, Tampa Bay Buccaneers this week. What do you think about him?
Tampa Bay's not gonna be ready for New Orleans in New Orleans, the home opener, when New Orleans lost against Arizona last week. I see Breeze going out throwing 2 touchdowns to Brandon Cooks. I think they're both must-owns in daily fantasy football. They could both have massive, massive weeks.
And then another fantasy must-own you have at wide receiver is Terrence Williams, for all the reasons you mentioned before, but that mainly that matchup against Byron Maxwell and his relationship with Tony Romo right now. How you think he finishes up this week?
Well, I mean, all he needs is 12.6 to pay for himself, like we said earlier. If he gets to 24 points, that kind of efficiency spending your money is going to put you on over 200 points. You're looking to win tournaments at that kind of level. So another must-own this week, but he's probably going to be a lot higher percentage owned. So that's something else to keep in mind.
Yeah. And the important thing to remember here for everyone listening in is that what we do is we grade players based on their fantasy value and the opportunity they have in their offensive systems. Alan, you want to break that down a little bit better for everyone?
So what we have is every player has 3 grades. We have a player performance grade. That's just how well they performed with whatever kind of snaps they got. It doesn't matter how many or few, just how well they did with what they were given. The team position usage, that's how much of the offense flows through that player's position. So if you're on a run-heavy team, the running back score is going to be a lot higher than the wide receiver score. But if you're in a wide receiver pass-first team, it's going to reflect that as well. And then we have opportunity grades. That's something that just looks at the overall offense, where the ball's flowing through and where it is on the field when that player gets the ball. And every single player gets an algorithm, grades them based on how often they play and where they are getting their snaps on the field.
And that's all up right now at FFDraftStats.com. If you go to the site, you're going to have a navigation bar at the top. It's real simple. The only thing that's not functioning right now is the 3-week trend, obviously, because we just had 1 week. But as soon as we get through week 3 and into week 4, that'll be up as well, and that's going to be something cool we're going to tell you about down the road. Just want to remind everybody once again to visit FFDraftStats.com. You can also follow us on Twitter with the handle at FFDraftStats. And make sure you tune in every week, as we're going to tell you the best fantasy information that is free, but I bet you wish you could pay for it. Thanks again for tuning in. I'm Jason.
I'm Alan. See you next week.
We'll talk to you next week.